there was a major gap for advocacy for women in banking.
Right.
Had attended some conferences within the state and just noticed that there weren't a lot of women there, which concerned me from a few aspects. One, that women were not being promoted within the bank to an executive level to attend conferences, and two, that there must be a barrier to entry for young women to want to consider banking as a career.
So Natalie, it's really good to catch up.
Yes, for sure, and see someone in person.
Right, here in Bentonville.
Not on the socials.
It's like Zoom 3D.
Yeah. Yes.
And where are we here? This is a crepe.
Crepes Paulette.
Crepes Paulette.
Mm-hmm. It's a woman-owned business here in Bentonville, downtown
Paula
Bentonville.
has been knocking out crepes and winning awards.
Yeah, started in a little truck, a little trailer on the other side of the square.
Awesome.
Here she is.
Well, it's good to be here in Bentonville and to see some of your stomping grounds and what you're up to. But I mean, it's felt like a year and a half probably since I've seen you in person. I'd love to catch up on where you've been, what you've been up to.
Yes, I've been here. Haven't really gone anywhere. Worked from home for 2 months. So we were just talking about how that hour commute to work. So it was really crazy. In the banking world, you don't typically work from home. So that adjustment was just wild, especially having that commute and then not having it. So the car was parked, worked from the house. I know we did an Instagram Live during that period, just converting to that whole digital world. So our branches actually opened our lobbies back up in May of last year. So I actually started coming back to the branch back in May, and it's just been a roller coaster, of acclimating to one thing or another, keeping our team safe. So I'm over HR also, working closely with our HR director. That in itself, and then with the marketing aspect of making sure that our messaging was appropriate, not just outwardly, but also internally, and that everyone felt safe, keeping morale up, making sure our culture didn't suffer, and just navigating through all those wild things. I mean, I'm not talking about anything else that anyone else didn't deal with also. So we were all in it together in some form or fashion. Yeah.
So you've been on the farm.
Yes. Yes.
It feels like, I get to catch up on a lot of the social media updates with the kids running around, doing sports again.
Yes.
So staying active on all of that stuff.
Was very thankful to have the farm during all of this. So yes, I'm the 5th generation on our family's farm. The boys are the 6th. My ancestors founded the farm in 1860. Part of the Battle of Prairie Grove during the Civil War was fought there. And I don't know how many greats it is. I think it's a great-great-aunt witnessed the battle and later accounted in a diary, which is on display at the local battlefield park. But just lots of history there. So it was, from the farming aspect of it, you're kind of in a bubble. So my husband, real life cowboy, day-to-day life wasn't really impacted for him. The animals, the cattle still needed to be fed and cared for, just like every other day. So it was kind of neat to have that bubble. And the boys, Brody and Witten, 10 and 4, not really feel that much of an impact. I mean, Brody was out of school, clearly. We were doing kind of the remote thing. So that was an adjustment, but they were outside. They were running around. They were building things in the shop with my dad, and I'm very thankful for that. Yeah. And it was great to get him out of the house too, so I could work. I feel like you have 2 lives. You have your life at home, you have your life at work, and merging all that together is kind of crazy. So I was very thankful. We're on the farm there with my parents. They went down there during the day. I was able to do my thing for work during the day. But it was a crazy time. So I feel like we're somewhat, I don't want to say normal because I don't want to discount, it's not over yet.
We're at a restaurant.
Right. We're at a restaurant. We're face to face, which is fantastic. But as vaccinations are happening and things of that nature, but back in the office and getting to see my teammates and starting to really work on building that culture back up and the morale, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I want to dive into some of the things you're doing with Girl Banker. Because, I think when we think about community, you have this deep, entrenched community. I didn't even know about the Civil War stuff. But I'm going,
that's a whole other
thing. I knew
thing,
that it was, 4 or 5 generations, but I'm like, that's incredible.
I like to say there's lots of layers to Natalie.
So I'm learning some new things about just the depth of your roots here in this community, but I also want to talk about the Girl Banker and the roots that you're, really digging deep across the country.
Yeah, so and really to that point, I established the platform in 2017. Had no idea anything like this would be coming down the pipe, nor did any of us. But out of really just feeling super passionate that there was a major gap for advocacy for women in banking.
Right.
Had attended some conferences within the state and just noticed that there weren't a lot of women there, which concerned me from a few aspects. One, that women were not being promoted within the bank to an executive level to attend conferences, and 2, that there must be a barrier to entry for young women to want to consider banking as a career. I would go speak to conferences, to schools. And just the kids were looking at me like I had 5 heads, not interested at all in talking about banking, specifically the women, the young girls. Just no interest whatsoever in considering a career in banking. So that's a concern, right? And so through that period of time, I'd made the transition over to Grand Savings and just was super empowered there within my role at the bank, but also to develop this platform, which at that time consisted of a blog that I had some help creating. I mean, all the different pieces came together. Really, it was very amateur. Had someone from Etsy that helped me with a logo. Just there's a small amount of money to get the blog up and going. It was a great learning lesson for me.
I'll bet.
To establish the website and then to build the platforms on social. And so just started building it, started gaining some momentum. It kind of turned into some speaking engagements, which alone was a huge learning curve. Not thinking of myself as a public speaker, but putting yourself out there has both risk and reward, right?
Yeah, we've texted some of those evenings about that, right? Yeah.
So there were some really kind of crazy things that happened as a result of that. I found, though, that what the most interesting thing was that women in banking are extremely loyal and extremely interested in creating that community. So all the weird things that happened outside of that community really don't matter, because the community that was being created is the purpose of the blog and the purpose of the platform.
Right.
So all the naysayers, or the haters as they say, didn't matter because I wasn't there for them. My husband had to remind me of that one time, so I was really, really appreciative of him. I mean, there's been a few times I wanted to quit. Why bother? Why am I doing this? I've got this other gig. The main gig is the banker, which is what really matters, but this started to take shape and form into something I couldn't just walk away from.
Right.
And started working on a private Facebook group. I really don't like Facebook. but that group was where the audience was, right? And so started focusing on that, and as the pandemic started to take shape, that specific group just exponentially grew. Women in banking were needing that community more than ever. Right. They were reaching out. They were all in uncharted territory. They needed a group of peers that they could trust and rely on. And so it probably grew, it doubled, if not tripled in size during that period of time. And so now it's really taking shape as a group of women that we can share ideas. You can ask for resources, opinions on vendors, or hey, I need help with this PPP situation, or what are your banks doing about this? And it's just been, or just general motivation. Right. Hey, if everyone needs a pat on the back today, here we are. Yeah. Women in banking are loyal, supportive people and great employees, and banks need to embrace that.
Well, I would agree. and I want to talk about some of the successes you've had with this too. You've had not just a wave of, really commitment, right, across the country. women across the country have looked at this as really a great rallying cry, it feels like.
Yeah.
But also, we're starting to see more and more conversations around DEI.
Yeah.
We're seeing people shift positions to address that, and real change is happening.
Right.
How are you seeing that from your seat?
When in just the 3.5 short years, or 4 years almost, of having this platform, at first it did seem, yes, there was the rally cry, like you said, great, someone to have this voice and to advocate. Because it's not about me, it's so much more about women in banking in general, and advocacy for that. But what I started noticing was that the amount of women attending these conferences was growing as well, which showed me that it wasn't just, we're going to have this little conference and everything's going to be pink and we're going to, do all these events that are centered around women. It was more of, these are women in business, women in banking that are realizing that their bank is now empowering them to develop and to create a community, because they are essential team members to their bank, and that they deserve a seat at the table, not because they're female, but because they are essential team members. They add value, they're smart, they give a different perspective. They're more reflective of the customer base, right? It's not just what I call OWDs, old white dudes. It's so much more than that. So seeing the increase in terms of attendance and interest did tell me that the tide was turning. But there's still work to be done. That, when you look at bank boards, one of the biggest questions I always ask when I attend these conferences in person, it's hard to do virtually through Zoom, is raise your hand if you're happy with the number of women on your board. Not just at the executive level, but on your board. Usually no one raises their hand. Yeah. So there's work to be done. And I always say, don't just complain about it. Have a plan of action. Make a list of customers or people in your community that are women. To add that diverse perspective to your board, and take it to your CEO, take it to your chairman and say, not only am I not happy about this, but here's a solution I'd like to offer you. Here are some great women that you should consider before someone else gets them. I think it's great to see that there's an interest in that, but it goes beyond women. It's people of color. It's adding so much more diversity that's more reflective of our communities and our customer base across the country. And seeing association boards, those also need to check themselves. We all need to be sure that we're making an effort. So the work's not done.
That's true. Yeah. No. I know. I want to talk about a little bit of the challenges during the pandemic, specific to women in roles, right?
Oh yeah.
We have a leadership team that's 50% female, and we have quite a few moms who are really trying to keep a lot together. During
they're juggling a lot.
And I think there's been a lot written about that challenge and how that's shifted some things. Maybe retroactively, right? Like we're seeing some of that impact of really a lot more challenges. How have you seen that?
I personally feel extremely fortunate because I have an excellent support system. So while I was working from home, again on the farm, we're there with my mom and dad, and so my sons were able to run down there and spend the day down there, which was fantastic within our bubble. Have an extremely supportive husband too, that we really have a great partnership, that we split the duties. He's the one that gets the boys to school and farmed out during the day of where they need to be. So really hands-on. So I'm very lucky with having the commute that I do to work, and then kind of the demand that sometimes can be after hours or just really a mental strain, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could do it if I didn't have that partnership and that support system with my parents. So very, very fortunate there. I feel that women are always trying to navigate a balance. And if we come up with this idea that we have to have a balance to be successful or to be happy or to feel good about ourselves, then we're setting ourselves up to fail.
Right.
My balance may lean more towards work today, but family tomorrow. And it can look different hourly, honestly. So suddenly when all of that was in one place and time, suddenly we were either working from home and trying to make sure the kids were cared for in a new way, making sure that their mental health was okay, making sure our mental health was okay, getting the work done while being at home. It just was such a bizarre time. And a lot of women weren't so lucky. They didn't have that support system. They didn't have that partnership. So you saw a major exodus, I think, from the workforce of women in business because they didn't have the tools they needed to succeed, and they were no longer able to juggle it all. And I think that's frightening that our infrastructure, or just the way that we are kind of set up, that we almost set them up to fail.
Yeah.
Because of what those demands and expectations are, they're somewhat unrealistic. Yeah. So I think that, when you think about banking, it's easy to put it in a box and think, well, yes, there's this branch and everyone goes to the branch every day and everything looks and feels a certain way. Not now. Banks are learning that you can do so much more digitally than we ever thought, both from the customer perspective and the employee perspective. Yeah. So flexibility shouldn't be something that we just learned and pivoted through during the pandemic. We should learn from that and continue on.
Yeah.
And how can we continue to be flexible? How can we continue to create a workspace that is inviting to women that may be juggling having children and a commute or whatever, or maybe even women that don't have that still need the flexibility. We don't need to box everybody in.
Right.
We've learned that that's not necessary, and that we can still be profitable and thrive during, without that brick and mortar 8 to 5 mentality.
Right. No, I think it's fantastic encouragement to see the way that you're shaping some of those conversations, giving support. At the same time, the industry's changing.
Yes.
We're seeing a lot of real change happening in the industry in the midst of all of this other stuff happening.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about life is grand, right?
Yeah.
So how are things moving at Grand Savings Bank? What's next for you?
So one thing that's funny, this was my 20th year in banking a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
Started when I was 18 and started at a larger regional bank, and then kind of worked backwards in terms of asset size with banks. But I love to have an immediate impact with my work. So I'm really thankful for having those opportunities at Grand Savings. But one thing I have learned coming here, we are constantly moving. I know that one of their little slogans when I first came to the bank was Grand Savings is on the move.
Yeah.
And we are always changing and molding and growing. We grew a lot in the last year. We've got 2 construction projects that are in the works. So one that is a new branch within an existing market. One is a new branch here in Bentonville, which will be where I'm housed at. So I'm super excited about that. Just finished up a branch in Fayetteville. We are kind of different in that we don't just go build big new fancy banks. We like to take projects and kind of make them into, repurpose them.
Yeah.
So we have a branch in Gravette, which is a smaller market just west of here. The location that we bought at one point it had been a video store, it had been a workout center, it had been a church, it had been all these different things. And I remember when my boss took me by it and said, "This is going to be our new branch in Gravette," I was like, what have I done? And it's this beautiful branch now. We've repurposed this building that was an eyesore in this small community, and now it's this nice, pretty branch that gives back to the community. So in Fayetteville, same situation. Huge old restaurant that was AQ Chicken. It was kind of a staple in downtown Fayetteville. And changed hands. It was somewhat dilapidated. It was an eyesore on College Avenue, and we just finished that, and it is a gorgeous location. So it's funny, I always am skeptical when we find these places, and I'm like, are we really going to make this a nice pretty branch? And we do. I don't know how, but we all do it every time. So the branch that we're doing in here in Bentonville is actually an old gas station.
Interesting.
So it's going to be the new kind of where all the executives are going to be, and it has a drive-through at the end, which is nice. Our current location here in Bentonville doesn't have a drive-through, so it's neat that we are able to add value to the community in addition to what we already are doing as a community bank.
Right.
But yeah, we always have some big project going, so the wheels never stop turning. Always have something big going on. growing our team, making sure that our strategic plan is acclimating along with that growth. It's, I probably am just singing the anthem of what most community bankers are dealing with right now.
Well, and I love what you're doing. I think you've challenged yourself with Girl Banker to start from something that was, like you said, it was scrappy, and it was, just kind of seeing how you test community. I think it's a great model for how community banks operate, right?
Yeah.
It's the way most of us started, 100 years ago.
Right.
Thinking about this kind of scrappy, how do we help get loans to people who couldn't get them?
We really feel that people bank with people.
Yeah.
So we're kind of working on a campaign right now that, especially in Northwest Arkansas, you can throw a rock and hit a bank. I mean, they're everywhere up here. So what makes us different? Other than just our branding, we basically offer the same products and services. We just package them and deliver them a little bit differently. We really feel that our people are what makes the difference. We hire that way. We go into new markets with that mentality that people will want to bank with us because of the individuals there. And so we really stick by that. That's really going to be our marketing focus, is our people are the nuts and bolts of who we are, and they are able to deliver the brand experience to our customers. They know and trust individuals in the community, and we feel that is so vital, while also still trying to offer the technology necessary for those who may not want to talk to a person, right? You kind of have to be a little bit of everything to everybody when it comes to that, but really that people bank with people mentality is our bread and butter.
Awesome. Well, Natalie, I'm excited about the work you're doing.
Thank you.
It's so good to catch up with you in person, and I'm excited for the tour of Bentonville.
Oh yeah, let's go do it. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Natalie.